Welcome everyone to Blackbird Writers Presents. Today I'm Tracey Phillips and I'm going to be interviewing Sharon Lynn. Sharon Lynn's short stories can be found in not one but two Malice domestic anthologies, one of which won the Anthony Award for Best Anthology last year. Carne Diem and The Final Curtain are just two gems written by Sharon. Another short story, Death on Tap, was selected for the Sisters in Crime Desert Sleuth Anthology in 2017. The 2021 release of Malice Domestic's Mystery Most Diabolical will include her latest short, The Professor's Lesson. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you for that nice intro. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a prolific short story writer.
You know, it's kind of funny. I didn't think I was until I started writing them, and I really enjoy the format now.
Well, that seems pretty obvious. The Final Curtain opens like any good mystery does, with a murder. Tell us about it.
So I wanted to take something that was really mundane and really ordinary, which is a poorly attended theater production, and the final curtain comes down. And this particular show, the final curtain comes down with a bloody body attached to it. So it's just one of those things where everybody's really bored and they're not really paying attention, except there's something a little different on this one.
Yeah, it was kind of a surprise to me and to the characters in the story. Your main character is Sally Swanson. She's the one who finds the body. So tell us a little bit about her.
So Sally Swanson is the stage manager. So the stage manager is the one who's calling the show. So what that means is basically they're back there with headsets and they're saying things like, lower the curtain, turn these lights on, cue this sound, all that kind of stuff. So the curtain comes down and she's bored and blowing bubbles and
with her
and then she sees it and is like, raise the curtain now. And when I write, I tend to focus on plot first. I think of the mystery and then I want to write to figuring out the mystery. So my characters tend to take a back seat to the plot. So I finished my first draft of Final Curtain and I read it to my husband and he said, Sally is either a robot or a psychopath. She has no personality. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I kind of had to go back to grad school and kind of channel my stage manager friends to get all of her details right. And as I did that, I started to really like her and want to spend more time with her.
That's interesting. It always interests me how different writers approach the art, because I'm actually the character person. I need to know my characters before I know where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and mine will, once I start in on them, they will change the direction of my story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always start with that plot point.
Yeah. Was it difficult to get the details of her personality off so quickly? I mean, because we get a really good sense of what she's about.
Again, I started pulling from people I actually, remember doing shows with when I was in college. So that when I start, I kind of have my just generic character, and then I start pulling from people that I know, and that really brings them to life.
Yeah. And I'm just asking because it seems like in a short story, you probably have to get a lot of details out a lot quicker than you do in a novel.
You in the short story, yeah, you have to have just a few little key ticks and physical um, physical details
Mhm.
that just almost border on stereotype, but certainly inform the reader right away. Oh, that's this kind of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the intro of Mystery Most Theatrical, it was written by Ellen Hart. Um, and in it, she talks about how actors and writers essentially have the same job of bringing fictional characters to life. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I actually I teach acting as well as writing,
Oh, wow.
and and absolutely I will give my actors like writing tips, and I'll give my writers acting tips. And there are some activities that just suit both so well. And one of my favorites is called contextless scenes, which is hard to say. And what it is just this dialogue between two characters, A and B. They don't have names or anything. And the dialogue is super simple, just like, hi, hello, how are you? Why do you care? You know, just like things like that. And you give it to actors and tell them, okay, through your movement, through your blocking with the other character, show us who these characters are. And it works beautifully in acting. And so I just kind of ported it over to my writing classes as well. It's like, especially for young writers, they see their characters and they have a really good grasp of what their characters are doing and thinking, but they don't always have it down on paper. And so really good exercise to get them to just like show us what your characters are doing, and don't just tell us, show us.
Yeah. And what they're feeling. And yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's really interesting. The final curtains theme circles around a theater inside a casino. So tell me, how much research did apparently you didn't need to do that much research about theaters.
No, I grew up in the theater. My my parents helped start the community theater in my hometown, and so I like literally did grow up in the theater because my dad would be directing a play, my mom would be in it, and so I would be in an empty theater during rehearsals, you know.
Hanging out backstage.
Right, just all the time. And all kinds, like from Ionesco's The Rhinoceros to Our Town to the Fantastics, these just, it's like, oh yeah, I remember being in that theater for a full month of rehearsals for the Fantastics.
Wow.
Because both of my brothers were in the band as well for that one. So yeah, it's very much a family love. So yeah, my challenge with Final Curtain wasn't that I needed to do research about theater. It's that I put way too much theater into it. That was my husband's other comment when I read him the first draft. He's like, you need about 2/3 less theater in there. I'm like, fine. So I rewrote it and gave Sally more personality, and took out like 2/3 of the theater and gave it to another beta reader. And she's like, I really like it. It's got too much theater in it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I can geek out on theater for a long time. The more of the challenge was the casinos, because I've actually, the local casinos here, I've only been to one once, and that was to go to a concert. And I have a friend who is also one of my proofreaders who loves her slot machines. So she goes a lot to a lot of the different casinos. So she helped me with a lot of the details about, slot machines and loyalty cards and how you buy things with cards at casinos. So
Mhm.
she was my resource for casinos I didn't actually go and gamble.
Yeah. So that was the research.
Yeah,
That's cool. But that's what makes writing fun, I think. We get to learn about things that we don't necessarily know a lot about, And
I love research.
do
I
you?
love it. So much. Yeah. And I'm sure the FBI, well, for all of us in the
Yeah.
Blackbird, we're all mystery writers. I'm sure the FBI is
Just
tracking unsolved
monitor.
mysteries. So much about poison. And can I actually crush somebody to death? Maybe.
With all that martial arts training you did.
Actually, this one was for yoga. So not that a yoga person should, be crushing people to death, but
No.
but they have a really good understanding of anatomy, so that can help. Yeah, well, and the reason that I put the theater in a casino was because the casinos in Arizona are on the Native American nations, and if there's a murder, that goes to the FBI, and I wanted an FBI agent in the story. So
Okay.
that's that's kind of the only reason it's in a casino.
Yeah.
So
And I thought that was a great detail too. So it came across really clearly what actually happens, and who's investigating what. Let's see. I have more questions. So, how is writing a story different than writing a novel?
that's such an interesting question because when I first started reading short stories, I was like, I don't get how people do this. And because it's like they pack so much detail into so few words. And what I realized was that you start at the end. So short stories are all about the climax of everything that's going on. So in all of the short stories I've written, I could probably write a novel around them.
Mm.
But the climax is right at this particular moment. And so sometimes, I'll be aiming for a 4,000 word short story and I'll write 5,000 words before I get to my first sentence. And then it's like, oh, there,
That's where it
that's where I
starts.
start the story.
Yeah,
So
interesting. I've always thought that even some chapters, if you're good at writing a cliffhanger chapter, that
mhm.
some of those chapters could make a really good short story too.
Yeah. There are some authors who do that. So Stephen King actually does that really, really well, where it's just like, just take that one chapter and it's like the characters are alive and bursting, and then he's built up so much tension, and then it's like, haha, going over here now.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. Got to turn that page.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So do you have a literary hero or mentor?
Um, like everybody in my family is kind of a teacher. My mom, my stepmom, my stepdad, my aunt, my cousin, my husband, just teachers everywhere you look in my family. And so we always have like just libraries full of books. And it kind of just seemed natural to want to add to the reading pile. It's like, here, I wrote something too. So yeah, that was really the biggest thing. I think if my mom had her druthers, she'd rather I took up singing, but I would rather write.
Than be on stage.
Yeah, if with all of that theater background that I have, and even teaching acting, and um, you know, I worked in theater and the arts for years as well. I never wanted to actually be on stage. I am backstage, stage manager, box office ticketing, all those kinds of things. Those are where I like to be, and
Yeah.
makeup.
Makeup.
Yeah. I rarely put it on myself, but I love to turn other people into monsters.
Cool.
It's kind of fun.
Well, there's a way to do that with the written page too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are you working on now?
What am I working on now? I've got two things in the works right now. I'm working on a quarantine mystery because, write what you know. Uh, and it's about this woman who has lost her husband and now she thinks she's losing her mind. And it's kind of like if gaslighting got artificial intelligence. So, and it's kind of different. It's far more thriller suspense than I usually write, and because the characters are isolated, it's a really different kind of writing experience for me. But
Yeah.
I am enjoying.
Yeah, I wonder, like, when we get through all this, how many stories are going to come out of it,
Yeah,
fictional and otherwise,
and otherwise,
you
yeah,
know?
because well, yeah, it's like
Yeah,
if this is driving me crazy and I'm having, a really actually good experience overall, then, think about the people who
right,
are all alone or have lost somebody, in their lives and things like that. So
right.
yeah, yeah, I expect to start seeing a lot of those popping up.
I would
So
think so.
I'm mid writing on that. I'm about halfway done on that one. And then I'm looking for beta readers for a traditional mystery that is about a college student who gets an international internship in England and has a severed human ear mailed to her. And, it's a little distressing.
A
She needs
little,
to figure out what,
a little Van Gogh.
yeah. Actually, the first thing the police officer says when he sees her.
Yeah.
um, the cute police officer. um, but yeah, that takes place in Bath, England, and I just love that setting so much. And I lived in the city before and went back and got to visit it in 2018 when we could travel. And my daughter has actually been accepted to a university in Bath and is
Wow.
going to get her master's degree in children's publishing. So I'm very, very proud of her. And I hope she doesn't
Congratulations.
have any severed ears mailed to her.
Well, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Needless to say.
like, yeah, I hope you don't take as many chances as my main character does.
Right. Um, so I'll ask you one more question. Which is harder, writing the first or the last sentence?
I would definitely say the first. I came up one night as I was going to sleep. I came up with this sentence that was like, "This is the perfect last sentence. I need to write a story for it." And so I actually stayed up all night long getting together all of the details to get me to that last sentence. And yeah, I usually know where everything's going to wind up before I know where everything starts. So that's a big one. Definitely.
Cool.
The last sentence is
I
easier
love,
than the
don't you
first.
love those 3 a.m. thoughts?
Yeah, it's like, hey,
Yeah.
gotta get them out on paper. They
Yep.
haunt
Get you right out of bed.
you.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for talking to me, Sharon Lynn. And well, why don't you tell the listeners where we can find you?
All right. My handle for pretty much all social media is Sharon L. Writes. So Twitter, Instagram at Sharon L. Writes. My Facebook is facebook.com/Sharon L. Writes. I have a website, SharonLWrites.com. So definitely look for me in all of those places. And of course, with the Blackbirds as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here. It was great chatting with you today. And you can look for more from Sharon and from other Blackbird writers on blackbirdwriters.com. And thanks for watching. We'll see you around.
Bye. Thanks.